Hello, 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 Dan Simons.
Hey,
Hello.
Bershan.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to an exciting, hopefully deep and interesting conversation.
Yes, it's going to be good. But before we start, I'm going to do a little chime for us to breathe. Let's close our eyes for 10 seconds and just breathe. Ooh, I love it. Yes. All right, this is some good stuff, Dan. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to YPO Presents. I'm Bershan Shaw. I call myself a multi-preneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a leadership coach. I'm the founder of Warrior Training International, and I'm the founder of a mental wellness app called You Are a Warrior. And I am thrilled to host for today's episode, Building a Wellness of Culture Within Organizations. This is a good topic, Dan. And joining me is the phenomenal, incredible, amazing Dan Simons of Founding Farmers Restaurant Group. Dan, hello. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Bershan, and thank you for. I'm glad that you've invited me. YPO's invited me. We've invited each other.
Yes.
I love this topic. Entrepreneurship without a human lens, it's
Yes.
not really entrepreneurship. So I'm happy to be here and looking forward to chatting with you.
Oh, and you know what, Dan? I love that you're very passionate. Like you're passionate about mental health. You prioritize it in your organization, in your life. That's how you and I sort of connected because we were in alignment on the same mission. And I love that. So I thank you so much.
It's we're all as leaders on our own journey, and this is a YPO thing as well. And it's one of the fantastic things about YPO. It's okay wherever we are in our journey. Our personal journey, our professional journey. The reality is, it's one journey, right? We're one person going through all of these things, and our entrepreneurship is just one component of who we are. And
Mhm.
so, talking about it through this human centric lens
Yeah.
seems most important. When did you, Bershawn, you've been an entrepreneur for a long time.
Been an entrepreneur for a long time, really since the beginning. I mean, my dad was an entrepreneur. I mean, so I learned like doing my own business and never working for someone since I was like 21, literally. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
And I was going to say, is it, I love to know about, you mentioned your dad already, first thing, right? Is there something about the way that you grew up or, did grow up or didn't grow up, or something you did have or didn't have that you feel as what has given you some of this lens? Or is this all kind of learned later in
You
your
know,
entrepreneurial journey?
no, I got to tell you, Dan, so my dad, was from a small town in Louisiana, Gilbert, Louisiana. Poor, 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 8 children living in a 2 bedroom home. And he always said, I wanted more. I was going to get more. And believe it or not, my father worked his way out of poor, going to Tuskegee University, coming up to Washington, D.C., going to Howard, and like literally being known as one of the first Black millionaires in DC because he said, you can't put me in a corner. And of course, I've learned everything from my dad. Like no matter what, push through and don't be stuck and keep going. It's like you, Dan. When I met you, I mean, you built this amazing restaurant group, right? A guy from Boston. Tell us you. How did you want to do more and get to where you are?
I'm glad we're starting with a little background. I know we can take this conversation wherever we want, relating to wellness and organizational scale, culture. Um, but I think our background matters. Where we come from matters. Who we are matters. So I grew up in Boston. My parents were immigrants. Both of them came from Europe. My sisters were born there. My brother and I were born in Boston. And I was really lucky. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. My parents were both doctors, successful, professionals. And being immigrants to America, even as let's call it white collar professionals, medical professionals, is still, you're an outsider.
Yeah.
Kids, you get made fun of for how you talk.
Yeah.
My parents, they didn't know anything about sports or American culture. They weren't involved. They weren't coming to our games or telling us what to do. And so my
Yeah.
sisters and brother and I, we had to learn. And outside of the house, we had to like go and figure things out because our parents didn't have that experience. But inside the home, it was close and loving. And as
Mm.
medical professionals, we could talk about anything. So that's why for me, like, mental health, physical health, menopause, a broken leg, like it's all just human health. So my
Yeah.
background, I think, has a lot to do with informing why, let's call it the soft skills, or the what some people think of as the difficult topics to talk about at work. For me, they're just natural topics. I always had a safe environment at home, and I saw how that helped me through some of like the hard stuff. There's always sadness, and there's always tragedy, and there's always difficult things in everyone's life. And I just saw the good fortune I had to have so much support. And so at work, I just want to try to recreate that for people. Um, I guess selfishly, as a business person, I know it helps people perform their best. And then selfishly, as a person, makes me feel better when people around me feel better. And so
Yeah.
I think that's how my background really helped drive me to where everything's just better in the light, not in
Yeah.
the dark. Shine a light on it. And the scariest part, I guess, for some people is turning on the light switch. But things get better in the light.
And I thank you for that because we met through YPO, right? And as you know, YPO is this amazing global leadership community of these CEOs, entrepreneurs, leaders with over 35,000 CEOs. And YPO has helped me realize who I was and has helped me grow my business in the mindset, in scaling it, in cultural. And so I think this group is very powerful to start with that. I think it's very, very powerful because I met the amazing Dan Simons and other people and other CEOs that we network, but we also talk about things like this. And that's how we came together, Dan, speaking about mental health. And you brought us back to your background. And I have to be honest, my brother and my mother dealt with mental health issues. And I was a little bit embarrassed growing up. My brother did it with onset of he was a youngster in college and he did drugs, and he spiraled out of control with mental health. And my mother dealt with depression. So I grew up with this. And as you know, mental health is taboo. No one wanted to talk about it. It was something that we were embarrassed about, or we did not want to speak about it. Right. So let's talk about that because you have an organization and you're putting it on the forefront, which is why I connected with you because you're putting mental health on the forefront. You listen to your employees, you talk about it. It's open for you. Like, why is that? And how is that? Like, how'd you become so open with it?
For sure, it's both a personal strategy and a business strategy. And it's helpful for business people. And YPO is a business organization that acknowledges that we have this one whole life as a person, as I said before. And so when my business partner and I started our company, um, you know, 20 years ago now, we both believed that we should be able to bring our whole selves to work. And it just seemed obvious that we would support each other. And uh, you know, he was a parent. I was a very early parent at the time. And it just seemed so obvious to us. Hey, shouldn't we be able to tell each other, if one of us is down or stressed or worried, we got to be able to tell each other. So we did it together quite naturally. Um, Interestingly, in our partnership, I was raised to always say how you feel. He was raised to don't speak until spoken to.
Mm.
And so I think that I helped create in our partnership a really small one-to-one relationship of that safe environment. And my partner Michael is so kind and supportive of others, but he doesn't always know how to ask for that kindness for himself.
Mm-hmm.
He just has to be strong for everyone else. And I think he learned with me that he could be vulnerable. And I don't even really love the word vulnerable because I try to shift the mindset. He learned he could just be human. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
isn't that obvious? Don't business people want all of your employees to be human? Otherwise, you're pretending to be something that you're not. So it started at the top with the two of us, and we're partners, and we did it for one another.
Mm-hmm.
We role modeled it. And as we started, the business was really little, and as we grew and grew, and I think now we've got just over 1,500 employees. We'll do about 100 million in revenue this year, and we have lots of leaders role modeling these conversations
Mm-hmm.
and supporting one another, and that's probably the tactic that I can reinforce the most, which is it starts at the top of an organization or near the top of an organization, and you just normalize it.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be as simple as, it could be in a meeting and I could say, like, oh, hold on, I forgot to take my Zoloft this morning. And, maybe some people know that Zoloft is an anti anxiety med or it helps to treat some depression. You can use it in different ways. And it's like, what's the difference if someone says, I need an Advil
Yeah.
or I need a Zoloft, or someone says, like, oh, can someone hand me my crutches? Or someone says, like, I need a shoulder to lean on. So for us, it starts at the top and then you just normalize that. And at first, some people stay quiet. People are like, whoa, what's up with that?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think like the first time you and I met, right? And I was given that talk at Conscious Capitalism and Mental Health, and I came off the stage and I'm curious, and you're obviously building this whole app and movement and ecosystem, but I'd
Yes.
love to hear kind of your reaction to my message. And I know I really I put it out there, right? I think in the middle of that talk, I did a commercial for menopause, and I'm like, we're going to talk about it all. These are business topics,
Yeah.
but tell me a little bit about how you felt like my message connected with You Are a Warrior.
So thank you for that. I think that when I saw you on stage and you were talking about mental health and mental wellness, CEOs don't talk about it because it's been taboo. It's like whatever happens at home stays at home. But like you said, you have to be a whole person. People don't understand that if you really care about your employees, because Gen Zs and millennials, they are mission driven. They are not going to be in organizations that don't care about their employees. You were on stage and you said, I care. I want to know how your mental health is, your mental wellness is. We really prioritize that in our business. And I was like, wow, this guy really does care. It's different. As you know, I'm building a platform. I have an app called You Are a Warrior. And you spell it You Are a Warrior. And Dan and I we are part of this movement together, the mental health movement around the country, where we speak to organizations, restaurants, colleges and universities, telling people to really speak, and it's okay to not be okay. But when I heard you speak, I was like, this is the guy. This is the guy I want to do this movement with. I really want to go around the world, the globe, to get 1 million people talking about mental health. Having organizations and CEOs like you say it's okay to not be okay. Get your Zoloft. Take a mental health day. Go take a walk because you have to take care of yourself if you want to be good in business. And when I heard you speak, I was like, wow, because all of my life, I think I was too embarrassed to speak about it. I was too embarrassed to talk about my mother's issues and my brother's issues. And then I built a really big training and consulting business on it, on coaching and executive training on mental health. And it was like, wow, when I met you, this is it. Let's do it. You know me, Dan, with all this energy. I'm like, you and I are going around the globe. We're doing this. I have my mental health app, I have my platform. I mean, I think it's time that we break down the doors and break down barriers. And I said, I can do it with Dan Simons. That's how I felt, literally.
And I want to talk more and hear more from you about Warrior. But first, in true sort of YPO fashion, YPOers will understand this. Folks that aren't in YPO but maybe are thinking about it or just learning about YPO will come to understand that in our conversations, we come to our conversations with trust. We come to our conversations with safety. We come into the conversation with a belief in confidentiality. Obviously, this is an open forum. But with these sort of YPO conversations in mind, I want to ask you, you said like the way you grew up, and then you said, in certain communities, people don't want to talk about this. Is there an aspect in your lived experience as an African American person? Like, do you think that how mental health is talked about in communities? And I know this requires some generalizations, right? But do you have any reflections on how you see mental health in specific communities like yours?
Yeah, that's a good question, Dan. I do. In a lot of my, and I won't say just minority, but I would say for the African American culture, it's whatever happens at home stays at home. You don't go and you share they call it dirty laundry. But, now see with YPO, because we have these really great forum groups where you have a trusted group and you really get to talk and get to learn about other people. It's not just the African American community, it's really all people. And so most people were taught to show a smile, and we have this perfect family with this perfect life, and we're doing well. But peel back the onion and you see the real truth. And I would say, my life, my father did well for himself. My mother was a professor. I went to NYU, I went to New York City. And my story is I got diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, and doctors gave me 3 months to live. And I just told them, that's not my life. I cannot see myself dying at 30 years old. And it was 2 weeks before my wedding day. And my ex husband said, if anyone can beat cancer, it's you. And I said, it's me. I'm a goddamn warrior. I literally went to my doctor. I said, Dr. Katani, I'm telling you, what do I have to do? And she said, have the faith, keep going like you do. You're going to beat it. And so I literally researched everything. I started a movement online, and that's how my business grew with all the followers, 1 million followers. But I think going back to the mental health is that we have to stop making it seem like our lives are perfect when they're not. It's okay that your kids can be off right now. It's okay that you're off. It's okay that you have family issues. The only way to heal and get the help, Dan, is that we really come together and do talks like this. That's why I really thank YPO for doing this. Like you said, YPO has just changed my life. And if anyone doesn't know what YPO is, again, it's a leadership community of thousands, 35,000 and more CEOs, entrepreneurs, and it helps you with your mind, with your scaling of your business, with people you can talk to so you won't feel alone. That's the biggest thing I would say. YPO has changed my game and changed my life.
Bershan, your uh, experience of, if I can say it so bluntly, like really being given a death sentence, right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
stage 4 cancer, you're not like, hey, sorry, you're not gonna survive this.
Yep.
You could have, and we've never talked about it in this level of detail. So, here we go, YPO style.
Go ahead.
Um, you could have accepted that, dealt with it in silence, privately, internalized it all, and maybe
Yeah.
died in silence.
Yeah.
But you said, no, I'm going to shine a light on it, shine my own light on it. It's going to be public. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, can you talk a little bit about how you walked into chemo every day?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm so sure that this is why I'm so devoted to like shine a light on your problems. If you
Yeah.
can't fix and solve anything, but you're
Yeah.
never going to solve stuff in the dark.
You
So
never.
tell a little bit of that story.
So this is funny. So I got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, as I said, and literally, I gone to one doctor, and I said, "Doctor, what can I do?" And he said, "Do you believe in miracles?" And that just hit me to my core. And I said, "Hell yeah, I believe in miracles. I'll see you in 10 years." And I'm now 16 years cancer free, no evidence of disease. But I think with my mindset, I told myself, Bershan, you got to get busy living or dying. You got a choice, live or die. Listening to Tony Robbins, listening to Les Brown, and everything about mindset. So I went to my doctor and I said, "Let me do anything." And she said, "Let's try clinical trials." I know people are scared of clinical trials, but let me tell you, I believe that my mindset and telling myself I'm going to beat it. So I changed my mindset. I would go to Johns Hopkins literally in sequins pants and faux furs and red lipstick, dressed to the nines and heels. And I would give my arm and say, "Give me my chemo, James, my phlebotomist. Just do it." And people would be like, "Who is this girl in sequins pants? Like, who is this girl coming to chemo in a faux fur, like dressed up?" I literally would wear velvet and fur and like heels and dress up and put makeup on because I said, "I'm not dying, I am living." It is the will to live. And so they started to notice me. People in the hospital was like, "Who is this girl?" And that's how my story blew up. My doctor, Dr. Alicia Emmons, was like, "I want you to speak. I want you to speak at our event and be the keynote." And I was like, "Me?" She said, "Yes, you. I mean, you come in dressed up. You wear colors. You're in yellow, green. You're in sequins." And I said, "Okay." It was 16 years ago. I gave the keynote speech for this big event, and I had it all written down. And then I said, "Bershan, be real. People have to hear your story. It's the only way to heal. And this is mental health." I tore the paper up and I said, "I shouldn't be here today. Doctors told me I had 3 months to live." At this time, it was a year and a half later. I said, "I am not a statistic and neither are you." And I raised my hand and I said, "I'm a warrior." And this woman, this beautiful, tall, white woman stood up and said, "You're a goddamn warrior. We're warriors." And everyone stood up and said, "We're warriors." And I was like, oh my God, I started crying. And it was like, we are warriors. And literally, that was the day that changed my life. After that event, I got hundreds of people. It may have been 5,000 people at this event, hundreds of people coming up to me and said, "Can you speak at my event? What do you do? Are you a coach?" But it was the day I told the truth that I wasn't ashamed of my stage 4 cancer. Every other day I was. I'm tearing up because it's true. Every other day, I played it down. I had cancer. It wasn't really that bad, but it was stage 4, and they gave me 3 months to live. And every day I would get on the ground and pray to God. But that was the day I told the truth. And from there, I told the truth about my life ever since that day from Johns Hopkins. And I mean, it went viral. I got 1 million followers. Oprah heard about my story. I got a show on Oprah. So thank you for that, Dan. That was the day that changed my life.
Thank you for sharing it. And I know that other business leaders and company runners, they want to understand, how do you get tactical? What do you do inside a company? Um, but notice that we've spent the time chatting so far about the human story. And I do think like this is our advice. Before you get strategic, which
Yes.
then leads to get tactical, you got to get human. If you try to do anything I believe in business, maybe in life, inauthentically, it might work for a little while, but you either burn yourself, you burn your customer, you burn your employees. It just doesn't work for the long term. And so now I think that we've shared some of the personal story. Maybe I'll share one other anecdote, and then let's start to get tactical, right? And we could
Yeah.
talk about how
Yeah.
companies
Let's talk
like
about
mine
strategies. Yeah.
use Urawarrior as an app, and we can do what you do for your employees, what I do for
What you
mine.
do for your employees? Yep.
So 5 years ago,
Mhm.
I got a concussion, pretty serious traumatic brain injury, and for the last 4.5 years, it's been a challenging recovery. First year was rough. Symptoms were rough. My brain really couldn't function. And I'm fortunate I have the business partner that I could go to and say, I'm not 100% there. Like focus, longevity, brain stamina, and it's a physical injury, which
Yeah.
leads to mental health. It's like the concussion is, I think, um, frankly, like menopause, it's a perfect example of physical and mental is one thing.
Yeah.
We have those two words, physical and mental, they're the same. It's
Yeah.
just this body driven by the computer up here. My computer got damaged and I had a struggle. And 7 months ago, I'd finally almost accepted, wow, I'll never get rid of the headaches. I had a headache every day for 4 years at that point. And I'd made a lot of progress, but not that. And I gave it one more shot. I'd been referred to a doctor, Dr. Womble at Innova Medical Center in Fairfax, their concussion practice. And, I walked in not believing, but I hadn't yet totally given up. But I'd seen
Mhm.
every doctor, and I was finally at the point, like, whatever, I'll live with chronic headaches every day the rest of my life. Okay. And Dr. Womble, she talked to me, put me through some stuff. And I remember on the first day, she said to me, she looked me in the eye and she said, "You're going to get better. We will cure these headaches. You do not need to have these symptoms forever. Like, we got you." And Dr.
Mhm.
Womble and Dr. Wirtz and her team at Innova over the next 6 months put me through a protocol that I'd never been through before from all the other doctors, all whatever. And they cured me of that lingering, brain injury symptom with the headaches. And aside from my like bottomless amount of gratitude for that, my takeaway isn't about me. My takeaway is I have 1,500 employees. And you know what? Someone's got a concussion. Someone's got cancer. Someone's got a family member with
Mhm.
cancer. Someone's got depression. Someone's got a broken leg. Someone's got financial anxiety. Someone lives with gun trauma.
Yes.
Someone else lives with an undiagnosed
Yeah.
autoimmune disease. Like
Yeah.
with 1,500 employees, or frankly, with 15 employees, no matter who's listening to this, your employees and you, we've all got a list. And
Yes.
so this is a business topic because we want our people to perform. If I didn't have my business partner supporting me, I never would have gotten my performance where it needed to be. That would have hurt our company. That would have hurt our ROI. So these are business conversations. I don't want anyone to think that, oh, Dan and Bershan are like bleeding heart liberals and we're like really, that's not the thing. We're business people and
Yep.
we understand that if you want to generate return on investment, you got to care for the humans. They create the value even if you're using the AI, right? The humans still create
Yes.
the AI.
Yes.
So we got to now get a little tactical as you've been adding more and more employees, and especially with You Are a Warrior and
Yeah.
you have a coaching and training business, you're
Yes.
you're literally in this wellness space, but you
Every
also have
single day.
employees. And your
Yes.
employees got to come to work every day. And some got to write code, and some got to do marketing, and some got
Yep.
to do events and
So I have to
all
do
of it.
advertising. Yep. 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 It-
So, what else do you do tactically for your people that sort of ends up defining or
yeah.
helping inform your company culture to help with wellness?
So thank you for this, Dan. Your story is fascinating. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I think this is so important for businesses and organizations because this isn't, like you said, it's not soft, it's real. Because organizations, you have to care for your employees like you do, right? I want to hear from my employees. I want to learn from them. So people know I'm a workaholic. You're a workaholic too. We both like to work, but you have to really care. And let me tell you what I do with my employees. I literally give them a mental wellness day. I do. I give them a mental wellness day. I'm like, okay, it's a Friday. I do meditation with my employees. I send them out. Like, I literally send my employees and give them massage breaks. I do. I mean, and we have a lot of coaches, right, in different states and different countries. I mean, we're all over the world. We're in India, we're in Australia, we're in England. But I make sure that my employees understand the motto that we are people first. You got to take care of you. You got to put your mask on first. in order to help others. So we do training, we do coaching, we do mental wellness, we do everything, presentation skills, speaker skills. But unless you take care of yourself, you cannot help people, right? And so I have three things that I do. One, I know this is so crazy. Our ethos is creativity, communication, and collaboration. So, our communication, we give meditation days. We have Urawarrior meditation days, right? And creativity, I want to hear from my employees. Long are the days, they're gone, where it's just tell your employee what to do, how to do it. Don't let them talk. They don't have a voice. Let your teams have voices. And this is a good antidote really quickly. LVMH, I read this about the CEO. He said the bags were getting stuffy, the clients were getting older, they weren't hip, they weren't in the business, they were losing their je ne sais quoi. He said the day I went to the mailroom and I heard from my employees, I started to listen, was the day I changed my business. I listened. We don't listen. A lot of times we don't listen. I'm not saying we got to listen to everything, do everything that your employer says, but you know what? People want to be heard, Dan. You know that because one of your employees said, I love Dan because he listens. You do. You're a really great listener. You really care. And so I would say the number one thing is you got to listen and you have to care, which is why I started the Urawarrior app, because it's community driven. It's community peer-to-peer support. You can post anonymous. You can have daily coaches. You can have therapy sessions. You can do everything for you, but it's community because we have to get back to community. Tell me, Dan, tell me the tactical things that you do for your organization with mental health. Like, what do you do to help your employees?
So we have a playbook that we follow, and it starts with normalizing the conversation, and that starts with role modeling, things like this. An example for a company, if a company doesn't have any sort of wellness culture, right? And let's just say a company, whatever, they're a furniture maker and all they've ever done is talk about furniture quality, supply chain, marketing, the customer, all the, let's call it the typical business topics. Talk about the product, leave your problems at home. They don't even necessarily have to say that out loud. They just presume that. And that's the culture. Hey, show up, do
Yep.
a good job. You'll be rewarded for doing a good job and then go home. I would say a place for a company like that to start is for the leadership team to have a conversation, maybe not at work, not in the regular conference room, like, do a little escape. Doesn't have to be a full retreat, doesn't have to be a big thing, but hey, let's just meet off site for a couple hours. And our agenda topic is just one thing. The question is simply, how are you doing? And let's see if the leadership team of the company can have a 90-minute conversation about how are you doing. And that conversation might be kind of hard. You've never really done that. It's going to take one person on the leadership team to do a little bit of role modeling. Like someone's got to walk out on the ice first and realize you don't fall through it. And I would encourage that conversation to not be led nor moderated by the HR person.
Right.
So we work hard in our company that these conversations about how are you, like who are you, how are you, where are you, it's not an HR conversation.
It's not.
So I don't like this stuff to be an HR initiative. Certainly the HR department plays an important role, but to me, this is the CEO's job. This is the COO's job. This is the CFO's job. Like if there's a C-suite, this is your job. You don't point at HR and say they'll take care of it. It's an operations topic. So I like to start with, can y'all talk about it amongst yourselves? And if you've got 3 leaders in your company, 2 leaders in your company, one of you's got a struggle. There's a struggle going on. There just is. What are you worried about? And if it's not your own struggle, it's your kid, or you're dealing
Yeah.
with an
Yeah.
aging parent, and the dealing with an aging parent is hard for you or confusing, or you're feeling frustration and then you feel guilty. Like there's just, you could do a survey of one. It's not easy being human, right?
It's
And maybe you're good, but your spouse is on the struggle, moment. So I think set up those conversations and start practicing. And I wouldn't rush any other sort of step, because if the leadership can't get real, it will be difficult to encourage the team at all layers and levels to get real. So that's sort of, for me, that's a tactical step. And then we use another app called Talkspace. We obviously use You Are a Warrior. What I love is You Are a Warrior. You meet people where they are. It's a digital app and it's non-clinical. I love that, right? So people can find their communities and share their stuff and it feels normal. We use an app called Talkspace. So we invest money, we spend the money, we offer Talkspace free to all our employees and our employees' families. And on this, and we pay for the video connection. So it's talk therapy, text or video. The company pays for it all. And we talk about it at work a lot. You can't just have HR roll it out and put up a poster. Nobody
Right.
uses it. You need some role models to be like, yo, I was texting with my therapist this morning, you know? And so by having a clinical avenue that has a really low barrier to entry, you can do it privately, you can do it texting, you can do it with a video, you can talk about it with your teammates or not. So that's just two tactical steps that we do that help get things like this started inside organizations.
I love that, Dan. I love what you're saying. I think a big thing is to really be intentional about this, right? So if you're in a big organization with hundreds and thousands of employees, I think you have to be intentional. And you're right. It's not just an HR, put it in an email and roll. It's like really have an offsite, a retreat. Really, CEOs and COOs and CFOs, you have to really want the change. And let me tell you, your employees will love it if you really care. People love it when it's not just, oh, yeah, 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 business as usual. You know what people love? Hey, Dan, where did you grow up? Tell me a little bit about you. People love that. They want you to know, like, oh, well, I'm from Boston. I'm from Washington, D.C. My team runs the gamut. They're Indian, they're white, they're Hispanic, they're women, they're men, they're LGBTQ. It's the gamut. But you know what they like? They said, Bershan, you care. You really ask the questions. And when they have to go on offsites out of the country, this and that, I want, instead of HR, I literally say, how was it? Or if my HR does it, I'll send an email. The one thing that I can tell you for the leaders that are on this YPO event, really care, listen, really be intentional. Like I said, and I think everyone on here, if you are the CEO or leader of an organization, you need to have some kind of wellness platform. You need to have an app, you need to have a website, you need to have something that they're using. Like Dan said, he uses, thank you, Dan, the app that I found at You Are a Warrior or Talkspace, or there are many out there, but I think your employees will feel good that you really care to give them a tool. Because what do people pick up every 47 seconds? A
Yeah.
phone.
So we
Every
got to meet them where they are. And I'm with you. So I think there's got to be some digital way to see this topic. And then in training, we do a lot of classroom training. We're a restaurant company, food service company, catering company, distillery, bakery. We have these aspects of our business. It's all about the people. It's not all about the food, not primarily. It's all about the people. The people make the food. And so in our classroom training sessions, we call it farm school. We call the company the farm internally. And we teach some of these soft skills. And one of the things I always say is, hey, I want you to, and I'll teach a class and then we have a follow-up class 7 days later. Over the next 7 days, keep track of how many times you ask someone or how many times you say the words, how are you? And then take note of, are you still moving? Are you looking at someone in the eye? Are you walking past someone? And what we teach is that it's very common that the phrase, how are you? It's just filler words.
Yeah,
We don't mean it. Or even if we do mean it, we don't say it in a way that the person receiving it, you're not really asking me how you are. And how
right.
do I know that you don't give a shit how I am? Because you're not looking me in the eye and you don't stop for me to answer. You're like,
It's
oh, good to see you. Hey, man, how are you? You're
yeah,
walking by and you're like, what do you mean? Our culture is great. We're
it's true.
friendly. So when I walk through the restaurants, and our managers and our chefs, we joke that once you finish your work, it can take half an hour to leave
Yeah.
because you're going to say bye to everybody and you got to go slowly and you check in with people. Some folks are ending their day, other folks are starting their day. Same thing when we arrive. It's sort of 30 minutes at work to walk around and greet everyone and actually say, and you look people in the eye, hey, Bershan, it's good to see you. How are you? For
Yeah.
real. How are
Yeah.
you? And then stand still, pause, look people in the eye, and let the silence do the work. Be
Yes.
patient. With a little bit of patience, someone will actually think deep down physiologically, their brain will tell them, wait, this person actually cares how I am. And I'm not great right now. And they're like, and they're like, I'm going to tell them. And
Yes.
maybe not the first time you ask how they are, maybe not the second time, but you get to the third or fourth time where you really, and you have a whole management team doing this. All of a sudden, people start to say, you know what, I'm having a bad day.
A bad day.
And then you stay there and you're like, thank you so much for telling me that. What's going on?
Hmm.
And you just hear stuff and you don't always have to fix it. And we're not mental health practitioners, but we're human practitioners.
Yeah.
Like, how are you? Tell me more. I'm so sorry. That sounds really hard. Do you want to sit down later and talk more about it? Or have you thought about talking to someone else about it? And that to me, it's a tactical approach, and that's why I think you got to teach it in the classroom.
You
This
do.
is management 101. Take your managers, take your directors, and let's talk about these soft skills.
Yes.
These are the building blocks of building a wellness culture. Anything else that's just a top down rollout, that's programmatic
Mhm.
or any structural thing, it's
Yeah.
teaching this stuff, roll out this kind of training, and I think then you start to lay a foundation to build a culture of wellness.
Yeah, and to piggyback on this, it looks like we have a lot of questions that we have to start answering. So if anyone has a question, please type it in. I mean, this is how you start from the top down. Your leaders, your managers, your VPs, all of that need to really be in classes about the ethos, about the culture, and letting people really talk and that you really care and you want to get to know them. Because as you know, employees are quitting, they feel overworked, they're burnt out, they're tired, they're quiet quitting because they don't love the culture. If you want to really make the culture healthy and wellness, you have to show that you care. And it starts from the top down. It starts with the CEO. You know how many times we do trainings and the CEO is like, well, you're right. I never cared. Well, now start showing that you do care and you'll have a different type of employee. Right. And so, Dan, let's get to some of these questions, though. I mean,
Yeah.
let's
So
see. Go ahead.
so you know,
This is so
if
good.
you start caring about, I'm looking at one of these questions here. If you start caring about mental wellness or stress and anxiety, right when you're about to, like, because there's an impending layoff coming, you're late to the party. That's fine. You might be there now, and we're all on our leadership journey. So start anytime. Ideally, though, is it's best to talk about anxiety before there's some obvious reason for it, because there's always anxiety. So I would put it in order like this. Um, Mental health is just health. Let's frame that out as the mental health is just health. So when I see
Yes.
questions, how can we support our employees, facing serious health issues? That's
Right.
a great question because mental health is just a health issue.
It's a health issue.
Someone comes to work on crutches, someone better hold the door for them, right?
Yes.
Someone's trying to come to work with depression. We don't want absenteeism. We want folks to come to work, and we want folks to come to work and do the best they can. And so talking about, hey, maybe there's a class to teach, a discussion, small circle groups that we set up at work to, hey, what are the reasons that we miss work? And people are like, oh, whatever. I got the flu. I got COVID. My kid was sick. I was hurt. There's all like the easy ones to talk about. And it's like, what are some other reasons that some people miss
Yeah.
work? It doesn't have to be you, but you're managing a team or you've got colleagues. Someone can say, You know what? I know that some people take a sick day
Yeah.
because their depression has them overwhelmed and they can't get out of bed. And it's not a sick day in quotes. Oh, you know what? That's a sick day,
Yeah.
right? A mental health day is just a health day.
It's a health
And
day.
so I think leaders can support employees who are facing serious health issues by talking about it all the time. And if we talk about it proactively, and
Yeah.
we you by putting out a definition like what's included in PTO. A lot of companies have like lists of things.
Hmm.
Well, why don't you put whatever your vocabulary is, but like overwhelmed by my depression. That's a reason to take a day off from work. You know,
Panic attacks. Right.
and
Yeah.
and you can say like doctor's appointments. You could also say appointments with orthopedists, psychiatrists, psychologists are all great reasons to use your PTO. Now, maybe a haircut isn't a reason. Maybe it
Correct.
is, whatever. But whatever so by working in the vocabulary and you're just normalizing, like Bershan, you said earlier that at first you were either ashamed or worried or nervous to like kind of say the word cancer, right?
Yeah.
You keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
A psychiatrist is just one more doctor.
It's
People
just,
love talking about their orthopedist, right? Like, oh, I got this sports medicine doc, and they
yep.
help me get back on the field or back on the court. It's like, oh man, I got a great psychiatrist. I got a great psychologist, physical therapist, mental therapist. So I think companies can work it into the vocabulary. Does that resonate with you?
It does resonate, and you have to think of it like this, right? Just like you said, Dan, you have an orthopedist, you go to a periodontist, you go to a dentist. When you have panic attacks, anxiety attacks, depression, you have to go to a doctor for your mind. It's just another thing that we have to do. We need to stop making it seem like this person is taboo, because mental health, Dan, is 1 in 3. It really is, whether you're dealing with depression, alcoholism. I mean, a lot of people are dealing with a lot of things that we don't know, and it's okay. You go to a therapist, you go to a coach, you go to a doctor from it. But I think in order for your employees to be happy and healthy, you have to normalize this and have wellness days. You have to have days off. You have to have retreats. You need to really be intentional about these things so your employees can really feel heard and seen. Just like, let's talk about these Gen Zs and millennials, Dan. They are really mission driven. They are mission driven and they don't want to go. I mean, they quit like this. They say they quit in a moment, right? So we have on our mission statement, we care, we are open, right? We are warriors. Everything with me is about warriors. And that doesn't mean that you don't have a bad day. It means that if you can fall down, you can look up, you can get up, and we are here for you to keep going,
I
right?
love
That
that.
is our mission. And so tell me about that. With how do you want to tell the YPO community that have these large organizations about, the Gen Zs, the millennials that are coming in, and they don't want to be told and bullied, and they want support.
It's one more business reason to normalize this conversation. This is
Yes.
what your employees want. It's what they
Yes.
demand. It's what they require. I would also say it's actually what our employees and we individually have always wanted and needed. Thankfully, now these younger generations are more educated on saying it out loud, more willing to say it out loud. So, as business people, that's why I say get the CFO and the CEO in a room and keep
Mhm.
the HR person out of the room. I
Yes.
love the HR person, but this has to be the CEO saying, normalizing this conversation. This is a retention strategy. This is a productivity strategy. This is an ROI strategy. Let's put a budget behind it.
Yes.
If your company does have to go through, let's just say, layoffs, I was driving through Bethesda the other day and I saw there's a big local company here that's going through a round of layoffs, and there are folks that are protesting about it, and it's a very difficult time. I know that companies often provide, for example, outplacement job service.
Mhm.
They try to help the people they lay off get new jobs. I think that's good. What I think would be great is when we lay people off, or if people have to be laid off, um, we should probably offer two types of benefits. to those losing their job. We're going to help you with career counseling and help you towards getting a new job. And we're going to help you with some mental health, wellness, positivity, counseling, because we know that when you lose your job, you're down, you're scared, you're
Yeah.
worried, you're anxious, you're
Yeah.
angry. And so, if we really want to do the right thing for employees, including when they're no longer going to work with us, because that's how you build culture, that's how your existing employees look at the situation and say, wow, that could be me. And I'm glad I work at a place that is doing this with honor. I
That
mean,
care.
layoffs are part of the, companies ebb and flow. Layoffs are part of business. And so why not add both of those and now be a company that I'll help you get a new job and I'll help you with your mind through this rough patch. You'll build your brand and your culture externally with those former employees.
So Dan, let's talk about really now that's budget, that's money, right? Let's talk about some YPOers who are listening to this and saying, I mean, okay, I'm going to help you with therapy, I'm going to help you get help you with career counseling. That's out of your budget. That's your
It
bottom
is.
line.
It's your bottom line. And what else is your bottom line? Well, if you could drop your turnover by a third,
Yep.
right? If you could increase employee satisfaction
Yep.
by 10 points, every company should be doing employee surveys, find ways to be really plugged in, measure the adoption of the things that you're doing. And there's a cost to absenteeism. There's a cost to turnover. There's a cost to low productivity. There's a cost to
Yes, it
disgruntled employees.
is. It
So
really,
I there's not a CEO out there that I can't win this math debate with. Put me in a room with your CFO and show me your P&L about what your turnover costs and what your training costs, and show me how much you have to spend on recruiting, when actually you could take
yep.
some of your recruiting budget, some of your training budget, not have to spend it,
And
and
put it in mental
and
health.
put it into this.
Yes.
And what do you
Yes.
think it's worth to win one of these best places to work awards?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
It
what's
means
that worth to you? And so if you say, wow, that has a value of X dollars, I can actually reinvest those dollars. So I love
yeah.
the way you asked it. It's a math topic, it's a business topic, and it's like investing in any other
Yes.
strategy with tactics. You got to measure them, but they generate returns.
But piggybacking off what you're saying, it's so true. When you lose someone, then you have someone who has to take the position. They're doing two things now. It was one person gone. Now you have disgruntled employees. Now you have to find a headhunter. Now you have to look for them. Now it's a month or two. And now you have to, they say it takes like 60 to 70,000 to get a new employee, but put that money into the training, put that money into a wellness day, put that money into you care about your employees being the number one place to work at, being the place where the CEO cares, being the place where we are a wellness community, getting an app. I'm telling you, the one thing I used to do when I launched the app, with you, Dan, thank you, at Founding Farmers Group, we did a big activation on mental health, but it's not just using it, it's a preventative measure. It's a preventative measure because nowadays employees are talking about suicide. It's something realistic that employees are talking about.
And
People are
what's
talking about suicide.
and Bershan, this to bring it to like the CFO conversation, what's it worth to save someone's life?
Yep.
You know? And if you want to talk about the downside, what do you think it costs your company when someone takes their own life and
Yep.
all the colleagues in the company think we should have done something?
We should have done something.
We could have done something. Oh, but nobody felt safe to talk about it.
Yep.
As leaders,
You're right.
that's on us,
It
right?
is. It
It's
is.
a,
We have to
it's
take responsibility for it. Yep.
and I know we're close on time. I see a question, and from the audience that what happens with the inevitable of someone takes advantage of this. You have an employee who overstays their welcome with utilizing the benefits, the time off, or they never stop talking about like it's all about their problem, etc. I have two reactions to that question.
And I have a reaction too. Yep. Go ahead, Dan.
One is it's the tiny minority. People ask me in the restaurant business, like, "Oh, what do you think when someone's just trying to scam you and get a free meal?" My basic reaction is, "Yeah, I don't care." I focus on the 99%,
Yeah.
and I try to take out of my mind that someone might be burning me because I don't want to assume that. So that's my first reaction. And my second reaction is, and I do deal with this because we have a culture where it's safe to express your stuff. Sometimes I have to sit down with someone and say, "Hey, listen, let's help get you set up with the right
Yeah.
professional support structures because this is starting to become part of your dominant brand at work. And it's a distraction for you and your team because we still have to perform. We still have to do our thing." So to me, it's just becomes one more thing to coach. But if you create a safe environment, and you don't think, "Oh, we got to send them to HR to deal with it."
Yeah.
Um, you teach your directors of operations and your managers and your chefs or your line operators to address it. And I would coach it like anything else. What's your reaction to that question?
I think to tell you the truth, I think when a member or an employee feels like that the CEO really cares, I think it's a small minority that take advantage of it. You feel good if your CEO and the leaders of your institution, your organization, it's like, take a mental health day. You know what? If you're dealing with alcoholism, depression, or whatever, take a time off. We're going to do a wellness day. We're going to have retreats. We're going to have training. Like, you're showing your employees that you're investing in this with real money, with real classes, with real training, and you mean business. You're intentional. So I think you'll get a small minority of people who are going to take advantage. I think the bigger issue is that you'll get a happier staff, you'll get happier employees, and one fan turns into thousands of fans rather than one bad egg, right?
I
I
love it.
think I think it's better that we really become advocates of mental health and mental wellness in the workplace so people can show one another that this is a topic that we care about and we want to normalize it. I'm telling you, Dan, from the moment I met you, I fell in love with you
I feel the
because
same, Rashawn. I feel the
I
same.
know, we totally have to do a part two of this because you truly cared. And we need to end this, Dan. So please, everyone, go to Founding Farmers Restaurant and follow my app. You are a warrior. You are a warrior. And thank you, YPO, the best community leadership community out there. Thank you, Dan.
Bravo. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.